evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. The big talking point is coming from the war in Gaza as Israel bombs Gaza's largest refugee camp. There are stories of hundreds of civilians who have suffered. Is this a war crime or can Israel claim legitimate self-defense? We'll be talking to voices from Palestine and Israel. Also, the battle for Chhattisgarh. Last stage, it's Bhupesh Baghel, Raman Singh. We'll speak to both the chief minister contender. First, let's bring you the latest updates from the Israel-Hamas war. Big escalation in that war as Israel bombed the Jabalia refugee camp today, the largest in Gaza for a second day. Hamas claiming 50 people have died in the first wave of attacks. The airstrikes have left massive debris at the site. Hamas claiming 7 hostages were killed in these Israeli strikes. Hamas claims it's preparing for a counter-attack, threatens to launch many more October 7th-like massacres. The group claims there will be no ceasefire. Yemen's Houthi rebels for the first time claimed missile and drone attacks targeting Israel. The action of Houthi rebels are drawing their main sponsor Iran closer to the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. And the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt opened for limited evacuation. The crossing is open for the first time in weeks to allow the evacuation of injured Palestinians and foreign passport holders. Bolivia, meanwhile, has snapped diplomatic ties with Israel because of the attacks on the Gaza Strip. Jordan, Colombia and Chile have recalled their ambassadors to Israel for consultations. But our top story tonight. Israel launched last night massive airstrikes targeting the Jabalia refugee camp in North Gaza. It's the largest such refugee camp in Gaza. It's caused massive destructions of buildings, and the Palestinian Authority has claimed that at least 400 people have died. Other figures are putting it at 50. Another 150 are injured. While the count may be disputed, the fact is many civilians have died. Israel claims the attack was an important move in the war as it killed one of the Hamas leaders. But across the world, there are those who are questioning whether now innocent civilians can continue to pay the price for these bombings. It's our top story tonight. Are these bombings also now a war crime? Take a look.
The airstrikes lit up the night sky at Gaza with flashes. These are images of Israel Army's airstrikes targeting Jabalia refugee camp on 31st October. Officials claimed more than 50 Palestinians had been killed and 150 wounded when tons of aerial explosives struck residential dwellings in the heart of the Jabalia camp in urbanized North Gaza.
A large number of injured have come to us after the large explosion that shook the entire Jabalia refugee camp. Hundreds of injuries, hundreds of martyrs. They were just in their homes. They were targeted while they were in their homes. Children, all martyrs. Women, elderly. We have no idea what to do. There are injured everywhere.
Jabalia is the largest of the Gaza Strip's 8 refugee camps with around 116,000 registered Palestinians living there. It's in the northern portion of the Gaza enclave. The refugee camps here over decades have become dense, permanent communities with nowhere to rehabilitate the Palestinian refugees.
May God have mercy on them. To God we belong and to Him we will return. May God give me patience. To God we belong and to Him we will return. Intercede for us, God. God is great. Thank God we die as martyrs. May God give me patience.
This mother lost at least 3 of her children in the Israeli airstrikes of Tuesday. Israel justifies the airstrike as an important necessary move in the war to dismantle Hamas's underground operations.
Our forces continue to significantly expand their ground operations in the northern Gaza Strip. Overnight, forces engaged in significant battles, including a multi-story building in Jabalia area. Terrorists fired at our forces in the area. Hamas used that structure, like many others, as a sanctuary. In this case, talking about the deliberate use of civilian structure near a school, a medical center, and government offices.
The West Bank observed a general strike following Israeli airstrikes at Jabalia. In the neighboring country of Jordan, nearly 2,000 people protested in support of Palestinians in Gaza following the deadly airstrike on Jabalia.
I'm short of words after I saw this massacre. This is the first time I witnessed a massacre like the one I saw today. I have never seen something like this in my whole life. Not in the previous war, not the one before, not in any war. I collapsed.
Nothing changed since the destruction of Jabalia. The war continues, as neither side are ready to back down to consider the humanitarian cost of this war.
And joining me now is leading Palestinian academic Dalal Irikat, is with the Arab American University of Palestine in Ramallah. Appreciate your joining us, ma'am. At the very outset, we are getting conflicting figures, ma'am, on the casualties in this attack on the Jabalia refugee camp. Palestinian authorities claiming 400 people have died. Hamas says 50 people have died. Is this now all part of a propaganda war? We're getting conflicting figures on what happened and the death toll.
Well, the propaganda is actually the media outlets that are trying to focus on those tiny bits and pieces. At the first 5 minutes, 100 people were confirmed dead. And they said 300 serious casualties. 5 or 6 hours later, they said 400 dead. So it is not about propaganda. It's not about misleading the audiences. On the contrary, it's about facts. It's about conveying and communicating the truth. 100 were reported death in the first couple of minutes. A couple of hours later, of course, the number of the death toll had risen to hundreds. So please focus on the truth, focus on the need for a humanitarian ceasefire for the sake of the Palestinian civilians in Gaza, instead of shattering and refocusing the attention into those tiny details. Please focus on the Israeli Hezbollah and their propaganda in misleading the audiences. Whenever they commit any crime, they try to blame the victim, and they try to put the blame on the victim by saying this is Palestinian-friendly fire, for example. We have been suffering from the Israeli military occupation and their atrocities and their war crimes and confiscations and apartheid and racist regimes for so long. We are living in 2023. It's about time we employ wisdom, we employ consciousness, and we see Palestinians as equally human beings.
Ma'am.
Once we see the people in Gaza as a human being, I don't think we should be wasting more time arguing on those details, but rather we will all be calling for immediate ceasefire in the name of humanity.
But the fact is, ma'am, Ms. Irikat, this bombing you're seeing it as a war crime, a refugee camp being bombed in this manner. Israel claims it's its right to self-defense, that many of these refugee camps is where Hamas has its commanders located.
What we have seen yesterday is a massacre, a slaughtering all those hundreds of civilians in Jabalia refugee camp. And yes, the repetitive actions of targeting and slaughtering civilians amount to the definition of war crimes under international law. So it's not just my personal intake that what Israel is perpetrating is war crimes. It's by definition what the international law has introduced to us. Israel is committing war crimes against the Palestinian civilians in Gaza, and Israel needs to be held accountable for all those crimes. The fact that we are witnessing children and women being slaughtered and massacred on daily basis for 26 days is something that humanity should not be tolerating. We should be asking for an immediate ceasefire. Yes, Gaza needs immediate humanitarian aid, medicine, food, electricity, water, and fuel. But in the face of all the atrocities and the murders that the civilians are suffering from, I think everybody and all the humanity should be calling for immediate ceasefire. It's not okay that we are witnessing the Israeli state terror being perpetrated on the Palestinian civilians, while everybody is still begging Israel to allow trucks and to allow some humanitarian aid, etc., etc. Diplomacy is not about, just issuing and passing resolutions and then begging the occupier to implement it. Every diplomatic member state of the international communities of the United Nations has an individual obligation not only in respect of the resolutions, but also to enforce those resolutions and to ensure the protection of civilians and to ensure security and peace for those people.
Ms. Irakat, the Israelis are saying that the refugee camp was being used by Hamas to launch rocket strikes against Israel, that Hamas commanders there are hiding among civilians, and therefore, because it's Hamas that has initiated this phase of the war starting October 7th, or Hamas must be held responsible. Can, therefore, the argument be made that Israel is left with no choice because it wants to finish off Hamas? If Hamas commanders are located in the refugee camps, what does Israel do? That's their argument.
Listen, Israel is trying to mislead the audiences by saying that this is an Israel-Hamas war. This is not against Hamas. They cannot claim that they are eradicating Hamas by targeting and massacring 2 million civilians. They cannot claim that they are targeting Hamas by bombing all those hospitals, mosques, and churches. They cannot claim that Hamas is the target while they are targeting every residential building. 1 million children, civilians live in Gaza. So the fact that Israel is succeeding in manipulating the people's minds is very misleading. Their propaganda and their strategic communication tools, where they had employed every possible tool and they had invested so much money in spinning realities, in distorting the facts. What is happening is genocidal. The Israelis are committing war crimes against the Palestinian people. It is not okay that the world is still arguing whether Hamas is the target or not. We are witnessing the war crimes against the Palestinian civilians.
I will ask
it is
you
not
again.
Okay for us to see Israel, the biggest,
the
fifth biggest military state in the world with all its sophistication and military might.
Are you saying that Hamas is not using civilians as human shields? That Hamas is not using civilians, is not hiding, whether it is in hospitals or schools, and this is why these places are also, unfortunately, tragically getting targeted? How can we give Hamas a clean chit?
Thank you. Let me clarify one thing. The Palestinian people have been occupied for 75 years. The Gazans were besieged for 16 years. But the Israeli occupation did not start with Hamas. Hamas started in 1987. The Israeli occupation existed way before Hamas. Our struggle is under the Israeli military occupation. You know, there is a call. Palestinians have endured so much suffering under the Israeli crimes for 7 decades of apartheid, of killings, of executions, of confiscations, of settler colonial project, and of settler terror recently. The fact that Israel has been committing more and more crimes against the Palestinian people while it enjoys impunity makes the Palestinian people struggle for freedom. Unfortunately, with the help of the media bias, our call for our freedom is labeled like terrorism, unfortunately. It is not a war between Israel and Hamas. The Palestinian people has suffered 75 years, and any conscious, any diplomatic, any legal, any peaceful advocate today must be calling for humanity and for ceasefire, because 2.2 million civilians, mostly women and children in Gaza, are suffering because of the Israeli decision makers, rockets, missiles, and bombs that are being dropped every second as we speak right now. The children and the women are suffering.
Ms. Irakat, you know, the fact is, while a ceasefire and peace is what the world should really want, the fact is, even as we speak, more than 200 Israeli hostages are being held by Hamas. You say there should be a ceasefire, but surely a precondition for that is the hostages' safety is guaranteed and they are released. Hamas cannot keep hostages and then expect a ceasefire to happen overnight.
Listen, what you're suggesting might seem logical for those who are not aware that behind Israeli bars, we also have 5,200 Palestinian prisoners. Just since October 7th, the Israeli authorities had also arrested and detained more than 1,500 Palestinian prisoners. So the fact that you are still adopting the Israeli narrative automatically by saying how logical it is, as a precondition for those to release the hostages and then we cease fire. Well, for me as a mother and as an educator and as a professor of diplomacy, in face of all the suffering and of all the massacres, the documented war crimes that we are witnessing against the women and the children and the deprivation of basic rights, all the humanity should be calling for ceasefire now. Yes, I agree the hostages must be released and no civilian must be put to suffer such atrocities. But ceasefire for humanity in Gaza. The people of Gaza are human beings. This is the message that needs to be conveyed. The million children living in Gaza and the 2.2 million civilians living in Gaza are human beings who should be enjoying equal rights as any other human being. It doesn't make the Israeli civilian or the Israeli human being a better citizen. Let us be more logical, more humanitarian, and more civilized, if I may say, when we speak about the current situation. It is day 26 of continued war crimes, of continued rockets that are falling on the heads of the women and the children in Gaza. They don't have any shelter. They don't have any safe place. Even the hospitals are being targeted. The doctors are running operations without anesthesia. They don't have fuel. 50,000 Palestinian women are pregnant in Gaza. 5,000 of them will give birth in the next month. People, women and children are deprived from the basic humanitarian needs in Gaza. It is being converted into a big refugee camp, deprived from the basic hygiene, the basic rights, no water, no food, no medicine, no right to live.
Okay, strong words from you there, ma'am. I appreciate you joining me there from Ramallah. You're giving us a Palestinian perspective to what you believe is a war crime being perpetrated on Gaza refugee camps. Fior Hassan Nahum has been joining us, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. Boaz Bismuth is Israel MP in Tel Aviv. I appreciate both of you joining me on the show tonight. I want to turn to you, Flor Hassan Nahum. You may have heard my Palestinian guest saying what's happening is a war crime. She wants an immediate ceasefire. How do you respond to the growing concern that more and more civilians are dying every day in the Gaza Strip after the Israeli bombings?
Well, first of all, I have to say that the context of how this lady is speaking, obviously anybody who can open a history book can call her out on her complete lies that she's been saying and trying to convince your viewers. Israel believes in the self-determination of the Palestinian people, and because it does, we, in 2001, gave the Palestinian Authority, run by Fatah. Ramallah is a wonderful place. You should go and visit sometime. It's a capital, really, for the Palestinian Authority, with beautiful castles and houses and cafes and shopping malls and restaurants. And the Palestinian Authority,
where
in
alleged
fact,
atrocities have also been committed by Israeli settlers, ma'am. Let's focus on what's been happening in the last 26 days in terms of the bombings. Do you condemn, just as I've been asking Palestinians to condemn the Hamas attacks, do you condemn the bombings of innocent civilians?
No, excuse me. I'm giving the same context and trying to retort on the lies that she gave you. We left 2001 an autonomous territory for the Palestinians in around Judea and Samaria, Area A and Area B. In 2005, we did the same thing in the Gaza Strip. So when she talks about a refugee camp, the first thing you should be asking her is, why is there a refugee camp in a territory that has not been in occupation for almost 20 years? That's the first question. The second question you should be asking her is, we all know there's an complete underground system of terror, why aren't the cowardly terrorists coming out on top and protecting their people to go underground? That's what any normal leaders would do. So what we have here, as you know, is a genocidal government that don't care about their own people, are quite happy when their own people die, because they are the ones preventing them from evacuating to the south when the Israeli army asks them to move from the north to the south. That's what you have. You have a terrorist regime that has in their charter that they want to kill not just all Israeli Jews, but they want to kill all the Jews around the world. And how this lady can argue anything else
I'll just come back. I'll come back to you in a moment.
PR of lies.
Okay, I'll come back to you in a moment.
In an attempt to paint themselves out as the victims, the Palestinians have had so many chances. And in fact, her own people in Ramallah were brutally kicked out of the Gaza Strip. The Fatah leadership was brutally kicked out and killed in the Gaza Strip in 2007. But of course, they must have very
Fleur
short
Hassan,
memories.
Naum, let me go back to Boaz Bismuth, who's joining me also, Israel MP. Mr. Bismuth, you may have also heard our Palestinian guest saying it's time for a ceasefire. Is this now a collective punishment of Palestinians? How do you respond when Palestinians are telling me that this is a collective punishment of our people? This is not Israel taking on Hamas. This is Israel now punishing the Palestinians for allowing a group like Hamas to exist.
My answer is clear. It is time. It is time to destroy Hamas. It is time to destroy a terrorist group that is fragilizing the Middle East, but not only the Middle East. 3 weeks ago, not 10 years ago, not 50 years ago, a few weeks ago, kids were slaughtered, burned. Women were raped. 1,400 people in their homes, being slaughtered, like Holocaust, the same thing. Now, I heard the lady that you gave her 20 minutes. I don't even know how much the interview took.
10 minutes.
But this was pure propaganda. This is a disgrace. During the Second World War, these people are collaborating with Nazis, and I'll tell you why. She says she's a mother. If she's a mother, she has no heart for her children because babies here were killed and massacred. Now she's a woman. What does she think of women being raped? I'll come for 10 minutes. She didn't have 1 minute, 1 second. You know what? Leave a minute. Is too long.
But sir,
1 second to condemn.
Mr. Bismuth, I'm not getting a clear audio. I'm trying to improve the audio quality of what you're saying, but you're making important points. You're saying if she's a mother, the Palestinian mother should also worry about Israeli children who are killed. But, you know, Ms. Naum there, as a deputy mayor of Jerusalem, you're presumably a mother as well. There are today Gazan children who are also dying, Fleur Hassan Naum. It's not as if, this is not some scorecard that you need to keep between how many Israeli children died in that terrible attack of October 7. But now what's happening is, again, children and women are dying. You need to show empathy for both.
Absolutely. I am a mother of 4, and I'm also friendly with mothers who have children who are currently hostages by Hamas. They don't know anything about their children. I know a mother with a 5-month-old baby in the Gaza Strip, and she doesn't know what's happening with her baby. Imagine the agony those parents are going through. But let me tell you the difference. The difference is that we are fighting a war that we didn't start, and we don't want civilian casualties. We don't aim to hit civilians. In fact, we warn them to get out of harm's way when we can. And they came in only to kill civilians. They're cowards. They didn't come to fight our soldiers.
No, but are you justifying the bombing, ma'am, of refugee camps?
They went to houses and they burnt children alive.
Are you justifying the bombing of refugee camps, ma'am?
They decapitated children. We found a baby in an oven.
It's terrible. It's horrific. Does that justify the bombing of a refugee camp where there are also innocent children?
Why are there refugee camps? Why are there refugee camps? Can you answer me that question?
Because they
have their own autonomous territory. Why do refugee camps exist when you're living in your own place?
They claim to be escaping Israeli bombing.
Are we supposed to be responsible for their bad governance? Are we supposed to be responsible for their ties with Iran? For their terrorist ties? Are we also responsible for the fact they've not developed an economy for their people and they've used all the foreign aid to build armaments? Are we supposed to be responsible for that? Enough giving Hamas a free card to abuse their own people and aid them in blaming Israel. Enough.
Okay, I want to come to Boaz Bismuth again. Mr. Bismuth, you said that if she was a mother, the Palestinian woman was a mother, she would be concerned about the manner in which Israelis were brutally killed on the 7th of October. Now Palestinians are turning around and saying, look at the women and children in these refugee camps who are being killed. There seems to be a dehumanization taking place on both sides.
No, please. No parallel. Please, you're not allowed, and I will not allow you to make a parallel between what they have done and what we have done, or what we are doing. Because first of all, if I wouldn't care about their lives, I would send my planes, I wouldn't send my soldiers. B, I tell civilians, get out of this building because I'm going to attack this building. C, all terrorists are going under hospitals because they know I will not attack an hospital, although they're lies. Now you interviewed the person that mentioned when you spoke about the hostages. What did she say? She said, also in Israel, they've got thousands of people in their jails. Yes, we have terrorists. We keep terrorists. What do they have? 6 months babies. So you can see by your answer who you interviewed for 10 minutes. This is pure propaganda.
If
This
the hostages were released, should there be a ceasefire, Mr. Bismuth? Assume that the hostages are released come tomorrow. Should there then be a ceasefire?
Sir, I live in Israel. My kids live in Israel. Israel was built in order to be a secure place for the Jews. Not only that, this is our land. This is our promised land. We are back in our land, and some were born here, of course, third, fourth, fifth generation. Yet, when I see anti-Semitism all around the world, I say, thank God I have a country. Now, my duty, my morale, if you ask me about morality, big words, morality is to protect my children. Morality is to protect my people. And therefore, I am entitled to finish terrorism. Now, you, in your country,
Palestinians
you know
have a
what is
morality,
terrorism.
Mr. Bismuth? Do Palestinians' children have the same rights as Israeli children have?
But I have nothing against children. What, did you see my soldier going and slaughtering Palestinian children? What are you talking about? Yet, in 2006, when they had elections, knowing that Hamas is a terrorist group, knowing that Hamas wants to eliminate me as a nation, knowing that Hamas wants to renew this Islamic jihad, whatever, 70% of Gaza people voted for them. And although they did that, I'm not attacking civilians. I have nothing against civilians. I have nothing against Palestinians. But I have everything against terrorism.
How do you then defend the position that it is reported over the last 4 weeks, more than 5,000 people may have died in the Gaza Strip, according to some figures, including a large number of women and children?
Who are you taking the numbers from? Who are you taking
sorry,
the numbers
sir.
from?
I'm sorry. I'm in the middle.
Genocidal government?
Please, I'm in the middle of my answer.
Yes.
I want to tell you something, and that's very important. First of all, I'm not targeting civilians yet. You know, before being a member of parliament, I used to be a journalist myself. I covered the war in Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan. I covered many events in my life. And you know, when the West, when the civilized world, if you want, attacks terrorism, then he's entitled to. When it comes to Israel, so immediately you take, for example, Hamas, and you will say, military branch, what do they say? Political branch, as if you have branches, as if anything in barbarian actions like they did is military, as if anything political is in what they do. So please, the same thing you would expect from your government, the same thing you would expect from your army in India, in America, in Great Britain, in any country, this fighting terrorism, this fighting Hamas is also your war. Why? Because if you really care for Palestinians, if you really care for babies in Palestine, if you really care about children in Palestine or women, you should eliminate a terrorist group like Hamas. Because who's behind what's happening in Gaza right now? It's Hamas, because if they stop, first of all, if they wouldn't have come inside our villages, our houses, our communities, then we would never respond. You would have never seen that.
Do you see a ceasefire? Do you see a ceasefire, Mr. Bismuth, on the horizon? Or do you believe this war could expand further?
I, as an Israeli, not only member of parliament, as an Israeli citizen, I will not allow my government to stop until Hamas is eliminated. You have to understand that. This is my duty for my nation, for my children, for my women. 3 weeks ago, my babies were slaughtered. My women were raped. 1,400 civilians died. And now my babies, because my soldiers, these are youngsters, are now in Gaza fighting a very difficult fight for the protection of our people. And by the way, if I wouldn't care about civilians, I would send my Air Force. I wouldn't send my boys there to fight. I care about life. And let me tell you one thing in order for you to understand. In my country, where I come from, we have the cult of life. We worship life. In Gaza, as you can see, the cult is death. They worship death. And you don't succeed in understanding. You don't even want to understand that. What has happened 3 weeks ago is something dreadful for humanity. And you brought here for 10 minutes someone who spoke about war crimes.
She's
and for 10 minutes did not have the decency. Wait a second, I did not finish.
Yes.
Did not have the decency to condemn. And by the way, when you think about Palestinians, the Palestine Authority, the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, or if you prefer Abu Mazen, still did not condemn the burning, slaughtering of babies. So tell me, what are you talking about? Humanitarian, ceasefire? this group is going to be eliminated. And I can tell you and the audience that we are functioning according to international law. And believe me, if they kill my baby, they party. If I, by mistake, touch one of their children, I cry. This is the difference between Israel and Palestinians.
Well, Mr. Bismuth, at the moment, the truth of the matter is, while I appreciate your sentiments, the truth of the matter is little children are dying. And we cannot run away from that fact. The fact is that little children are dying.
Sir, the truth is that in my country called Israel, which I love, soldiers, or how would I say, missiles protect children. Here in my country, missiles protect children. Every night we're being launched, and me with my little kids, I take them to a secure place. So again, missiles protect children. If you cross the border and you go to Gaza, over there, children protect missiles. So before coming to me, Israel, and believe me, I function according to international law, and I care about life, especially of kids and women, whatever they are.
Okay.
Go to Hamas, go to Palestinians, go to that ridiculous, horrible professor that you interviewed for 10 minutes and ask her about the functioning of Hamas, about all the historical choices Palestinians have made, never wanting to really have peace with us. And by the way, when in 2005, we don't occupy Gaza, what are they doing over there? Bombs, shelters, creating houses, meaning that their intention is not even prosperous
Mr.
country
Bismuth,
for the population. You know, when we in 1948, we're almost the same age, you and I. When we had the state, what did we do? It wasn't Israel that we wanted. It was much smaller. And we accepted, although it wasn't all the land we deserved to get. We said, okay, 3-4 years after the Holocaust, people danced in the street, and we started building medicine and agriculture.
Mr. Bismuth,
and economy,
I've run completely out of time. I've heard you. You've made a strong, passionate argument.
I don't want you to hear me. I want you to understand me.
Okay, fair enough. That's good to have a journalist on the show, or someone who's been a former journalist, now a member of parliament. Boaz Bismuth, for making your point so strongly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it a lot.
Let's take a focus now on our big election battle. Now, elections on my plate is back again in the run-up to the state elections, the final battle of 2023. And we are going to be traveling across the states. This week, we've traveled to Chhattisgarh that votes in less than a week. I caught up with the two big chief ministerial faces in the fray, the incumbent Congress Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel and former 3-time BJP Chief Minister Raman Singh. Listen into these excerpts from my interview with the top two contenders.
बीजेपी का आरोप पत्र गोबर घोटाला रेत घोटाला जैसे मैंने कहा शराब कोयला पब्लिक सर्विस कमीशन में घोटाला उनका कहना है जिस तरह से पब्लिक सर्विस कमीशन में एम्प्लॉयमेंट होती है उसको लेकर घोटाला तो एक इमेज बना दी है कि भूपेश बाघेल की सरकार अमित शाह के वर्ड्स है दिल्ली के लिए एटीएम कि यहां से पैसा दिल्ली में आपके हाई कमांड में राहुल गांधी सोनिया गांधी गांधी परिवार खरगे उनके तक पहुंचता है उसके लिए भूपेश बाघेल उनको पैसा देते हैं
अच्छा भारतीय जनता पार्टी की रिजर्व बैंक आरोप लगा रहे हैं कि हम लोग एटीएम है कांग्रेस के वो तो रिजर्व बैंक है जो लोग आरोप लगा रहे हैं
तो आप एटीएम है तो वो रिजर्व बैंक बन गए
वो रिजर्व बैंक है तभी कह रहे हैं एटीएम है करके
एक और सवाल उठता है कि अब एक तरह से छत्तीसगढ़ कांग्रेस यानी भूपेश बाघेल ये कहा जा रहा है कि मंत्रियों की कोई सुनता नहीं केवल बाघेल जी की सुनता है वन मैन शो है
ये गलत बात
वन मैन शो है कि नहीं
बिल्कुल गलत
ताकत आपके पास है पूरी ताकत सत्ता कोई फाइल आती है वो आपके ऑफिस पहले आ जाती है किसी मंत्री के पास जाती भी नहीं है
नहीं देश के अन्य राज्यों से कोई इतर व्यवस्था है क्या छत्तीसगढ़ में जिसमें इस प्रकार की बात करना है देश के दूसरे राज्यों में जो व्यवस्था है संघीय व्यवस्था है जो जिनको मंत्रियों को मुख्यमंत्रियों को जो अधिकार है उनके अलग अधिकार तो नहीं है
पर ये 2018 में अटकलें लगाई जा रही थी मुख्यमंत्री कौन बनेगा आपका नाम था साहू जी का नाम था और टीएस सिंहदेव का नाम था अंत में आप बने ये भी चला था कि 2.5 साल मुख्यमंत्री होंगे बाघेल जी 2.5 साल टीएस सिंहदेव 2.5 साल अब क्या हुआ ही इज डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर यू आर परमानेंट चीफ मिनिस्टर क्या ये लड़ाई अभी भी है बाघेल वर्सेस टीएस सिंहदेव
आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आपने परमानेंट मुख्यमंत्री कहा आपने इसके लिए मैं आपको धन्यवाद
नहीं सब कह रहे हैं मुझे
तो आपके सवाल आपने जो सवाल किया उसी में उत्तर है मुझे कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है, आपको धन्यवाद।
नहीं तो फिर टीएस सिंहदेव का होगा क्या?
उप मुख्यमंत्री हैं,
बागी बन सकते हैं।
क्यों बनेंगे भाई?
अगर आप ही परमानेंट रहे तो उनका क्या होगा?
भाई तो पार्टी तय करती है ना, परमानेंट तो आपने कहा।
क्योंकि आपने अपना हाईकमांड के साथ अपने रिश्ते बना दिए हैं, इसलिए वो बाकी कोई है ही नहीं रेस में।
कार्यकर्ताओं के साथ, विधायकों के साथ, हाईकमान के साथ पहले से मेरे रिश्ते, तभी तो मैं मुख्यमंत्री बना।
सो नो प्रॉब्लम विद टीएस सिंहदेव, ये चले।
प्रॉब्लम नहीं है मेरे, मतलब वो तो हमारा मजबूत सहयोगी है, आप प्रॉब्लम बता रहे हैं।
ये चीला और ये साबूदाना वड़ा टू गुड, पर ये क्या है, सीक्रेट क्या है आपकी? कोई तो है फॉर्मूला?
सीक्रेट ये है
कि पार्टी को आपने 10 साल में एक तरह से खड़ा कर लिया।
ओपन सीक्रेट है, टमाटर चटनी ने, और
ओपन
सीक्रेट ये है कि परिश्रम का कोई विकल्प नहीं होता।
अच्छा, परिश्रम है या ओबीसी फैक्टर भी है कि आप ओबीसी नेता हैं?
कुछ भी हो,
अब कास्ट सेंसस से अब कांग्रेस में ओबीसी का जमाना आ गया।
आप चाहे एससी हो, ओबीसी हो, एसटी हो, अपर क्लास हो, कोई भी हो, आप किसी सेक्टर में चले जाइए। यदि राजदीप सरदेसाई यदि यहाँ पहुंचा है तो उसके पीछे उसका मेहनत है। वो किस कास्ट से इससे महत्व नहीं है, लेकिन आप इस क्षेत्र में आप यदि स्थापित हैं तो उसके पीछे आपकी मेहनत, आपकी लगन है।
आप कास्ट सेंसस करवाएंगे? आप
बिल्कुल कराएंगे, क्यों नहीं कराएंगे?
करवाएंगे। अगर आपकी सरकार बनेगी आप करवाएंगे?
बिल्कुल कराएंगे।
जो राहुल गांधी ने कहा है, जितनी आबादी उतना हक आप करवाएंगे?
बिल्कुल मिलना चाहिए, क्यों नहीं मिलना चाहिए?
क्योंकि लोग कहते हैं, नरेंद्र मोदी जी कहते हैं आप हिंदू समाज को डिवाइड करेंगे, ये सब चीजें करके।
डरा हुआ है
नरेंद्र मोदी, डरा हुआ है भूपेश बाघेल से।
उससे डरपोक तो दूसरा है भी नहीं।
सर आपने आज तो अमित शाह को रिजर्व बैंक कर दिया।
हाँ?
फिर कह रहे हैं नरेंद्र मोदी डरपोक है।
डरपोक है।
ईडी आपके घर पहुंच जाएगी।
पहुंचने दीजिए, स्वागत है उनका।
ईडी अगर आपके घर पहुंच जाए तो स्वागत है।
स्वागत है।
मनी ट्रेन लेके आ जाएगी।
तो खुद पैसे लेकर आएगी क्या?
We're going to finish breakfast with the chief minister and then we're going to see him in a rally because that is where we will see the real Bhupesh Baghel. एक बार ये नेता होते ना, रैली में जाते हैं तब असली नेता दिखता है ना?
आपका अनुभव ज्यादा है।
नहीं मैं देखता हूँ। नहीं, नेता जो असली होता है वो जनता के बीच जब जाता है तो उसकी नेतागिरी दिखती है। और because we are talking of Chhattisgarh, Bhupesh Baghel ji is going to show us one of the traditional art forms of Chhattisgarh. That's before we go to the rally. आप लट्टू खेलते हैं, मैंने सुना है। So we'll play lattu with the chief minister. What is lattu? You'll find out. For now, enjoy the breakfast. नमस्कार सर। नमस्कार रमन सिंह जी। गुड टू सी यू डॉक्टर साहब, कैसे हैं?
बहुत अच्छा लगा मुझे,
बहुत दिनों के बाद।
वेरी नाइस।
ऑल सेट फॉर इलेक्शंस?
बिल्कुल, तैयारियां चालू हो गई हैं और इलेक्शन के अभी नॉमिनेशन का फेज 1 पूरा कर चुके हैं। फेज 2 में अब हम लोग जा रहे हैं।
चुनाव का ऐलान हो गया, कैंपेन शुरू हो गया, लेकिन बीजेपी का चेहरा कौन, मुख्यमंत्री का दावेदार कौन? जब भी मैं किसी कांग्रेसी से पूछता हूं वो कहते हैं लगभग तय है भूपेश बाघेल हमारे मुख्यमंत्री रहेंगे अगर कांग्रेस जीतती है। बीजेपी से पूछिए उनके मुख्यमंत्री कौन रहेंगे?
देखिए, ना कांग्रेस ना भारतीय जनता पार्टी इस बार, और पहले भी 2003 की बात मैं बताऊं, 8 में बताऊं या 13 में बताऊं, भारतीय जनता पार्टी के चुनाव अभियान में हम सब लगे रहे। मगर कहीं उस दौर में भी जब मैं 3 बार मुख्यमंत्री बना, कोई डॉक्टर रमन के चेहरे पे चुनाव नहीं लड़ा गया। उस समय भी सामूहिक नेतृत्व में हम चुनाव लड़े, इस बार भी हम सामूहिक नेतृत्व में लड़ रहे हैं। सवाल कांग्रेस का है
जी।
कांग्रेस ने पहले नारे उनके बदल गए, आप देखेंगे। भूपेश है तो भरोसा है
जी।
ऐसा लगने लगा कि भूपेश के ऊपर ही पूरा चुनाव अभियान चलेगा और ये मुख्यमंत्री का दावेदार है। मगर 1 महीने के अंदर ही भरोसे की सरकार हो गई। सामूहिक नेतृत्व की बात कांग्रेस ने भी कर दिया और कांग्रेस भी कह रहे हैं कि चुनाव के बाद तय होगा। आज कांग्रेस में भी भूपेश बघेल कोई मुख्यमंत्री का कैंडिडेट घोषित नहीं हुआ है। लोग कार्यकर्ता बोल दें, कार्यकर्ता तो किसी का भी नाम लेके बोल सकते हैं।
नहीं, लेकिन फिर भी ये सवाल उठ रहा है कि क्या रमन सिंह चर्चा थी 2-3 महीने पहले कि रमन सिंह जी को क्या कहा जा रहा है कि अब आप बहुत हो चुका है, एक नया नेतृत्व लाते हैं, न्यू जनरेशन। ये भी अटकलें थी कि आपको गवर्नरशिप ऑफर कर दी गई है। अब सुनने में आ रहा है कि आप अपने सब कैंडिडेट्स को लगा रहे हैं, पूरी तरह से जोर लगा रहे हैं। मुख्यमंत्री तो बनना चाहते हैं ना आप?
देखिए, मुख्यमंत्री का निर्णय आज तो अभी होगा नहीं। मुख्यमंत्री का निर्णय चुनाव के रिजल्ट जब विधायक दल की बैठक होती, हमारे यहाँ बहुत बड़ा क्लियर प्रक्रिया है, हर बार वही होता है। चुनाव हो जाते हैं, विधायक दल की बैठक होती है और पहले विधायक दल की बैठक में ही हम आधे घंटे में निर्णय ले लेते हैं कि विधायक दल का नेता कौन होगा, मुख्यमंत्री कौन होगा। इसलिए आज ये कहें कि डॉक्टर रमन का चेहरा है या अन्य कोई चेहरा है, तो ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी में तय नहीं है।
नहीं, क्योंकि एक हाई कमांड कल्चर अब बीजेपी में भी आ गया है, कहा जा रहा है। जो कांग्रेस का हाई कमांड कल्चर था, अब बीजेपी में आ गया है। अमित शाह और नरेंद्र मोदी जी सब कुछ डिसाइड करते हैं और हर चुनाव मोदी जी के नाम पर लड़ा जाता है, ना रमन सिंह के नाम पर, ना सामूहिक नेतृत्व, केवल मोदी जी को देखकर चुनाव लड़ा जाता है। सही है बीजेपी में?
देखिए, मोदी जी का नाम और काम दोनों बड़ा है और निश्चित रूप से मोदी जी के नाम को लेकर, उनके किए गए काम को लेकर भारतीय जनता पार्टी चुनाव अभियान में जाती है। हम लोग छत्तीसगढ़ में जब अपनी बात करते हैं, उसके साथ जोड़ते हैं कि 15 साल भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने डेवलपमेंट के काम किए और उसकी तुलना भूपेश के 5 साल के कार्यकाल से करते हैं। तो ये तो तुलना सभी जगह किया जाता है।
आपने कहा है कि ये घोटालों की सरकार है, कई आपने कहा है, कई आरोप पत्र में कई आपने आरोप लगाए भूपेश बघेल की सरकार में। वो कहते हैं, रमन सिंह जी से पूछिए, 26,000 करोड़ का जब पीडीएस घोटाला हुआ था तब की बात करिए, अब की बात मत करिए।
एक भी प्रमाण, भूपेश को मुख्यमंत्री बने कितने साल हो गए? 5 साल। सारी ऑफिस, सारे दफ्तर, सारे डिपार्टमेंट, सारे एसीबी, सारे इंटेलिजेंस डिपार्टमेंट, सारा चीफ सेक्रेटरी से लेकर सारे अधिकारी, 5 साल में 5 साल निकल गया। डॉक्टर रमन के खिलाफ एक पैसे का भी आरोप किसी जगह पे प्रमाणित करने की ताकत इनके अंदर नहीं है, क्योंकि हमने कभी कुछ किया नहीं है, कभी एक पैसे का करप्शन की बात। आज डॉक्टर रमन माइंस का मिनिस्टर था, माइंस डिपार्टमेंट में देखता था, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी में देखता था, 15 साल देखा। आज ये 5 साल माइनिंग डिपार्टमेंट देखे हैं। एक एग्जांपल दूंगा तो करप्शन की बात आपको साफ हो जाएगा और आपकी गलतफहमी दूर हो जाएगी। कोयले को लेकर हमने स्पष्ट कहा था कि कोयले की निकासी के लिए जो डिस्पैच ऑर्डर होता है, डीओ जो निकलता है, मैंने आदेश किया था अपने सरकार में रहते कि इसको हम डायरेक्ट जितने डिस्पैच ऑर्डर निकलते हैं ऑनलाइन किया जाए। ऑनलाइन करने से किसी को मैनुअल वहां जाकर एप्लीकेशन देने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती, कोयला निकल जाता है। पहले दिन भूपेश बघेल मुख्यमंत्री बनते हैं, ऑनलाइन को ऑफलाइन किया। आज उनका डायरेक्टर 7 महीने से जेल में सड़ रहा है। ऑफलाइन में 25 रुपया पर टन, 525 करोड़ रुपया की वसूली, ये प्रमाणित दस्तावेज ईडी ने न्यायालय में प्रस्तुत किया है। 7 महीने से कोर्ट जमानत नहीं दे रहा है आईएएस का डायरेक्टर लेवल का अधिकारी को, जो भूपेश के विभाग का डायरेक्टर है माइंस।
क्योंकि उनका कहना है ईडी का गैर इस्तेमाल हो रहा है। वो कह रहे हैं ईडी का गैर इस्तेमाल, अमित शाह और रमन सिंह जी ने ईडी का गैर इस्तेमाल करके हमें फंसाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, कुछ मिलेगा नहीं।
मैं तो प्रमाण बता, 13,000 पेज के दस्तावेज ईडी जब जमा करता है, न्यायालय में प्रस्तुत करता है, इनके अधिकारियों को जमानत नहीं मिलती, इनके पास 150 करोड़ की अघोषित संपत्ति जब्त होती है, सारे प्रकरण, सारे मामले। आज तो छत्तीसगढ़ का बच्चा कोरबा में खड़े होकर पूछ लो कि कोयले में कितनी वसूली होती है, तो होटल पानठेला का आदमी, रिक्शा चलाने वाला आदमी बोलेगा 25 रुपये प्रति टन वहां जाके जमा करना। जब कलेक्टर कलेक्टिंग एजेंट बन जाए जिस सरकार में, कलेक्टर के पोस्टिंग में जहां ऑक्शन होता हो, 8 करोड़ 10 करोड़ लेके पोस्टिंग होती हो, उस सरकार की नीयत और नीति की क्या बात करें।
मैं उनका भाषण सुन रहा था, उन्होंने अडानी जी का भी जिक्र किया, कहा कि रमन सिंह जी की सरकार जो थी वो पूरी तरह से प्राइवेट कंपनी को ला रही थी, सब माइनिंग वगैरह सब प्राइवेट कंपनी को देना चाहती थी, अडानी के साथ डील हो गई थी उनकी।
अरे हमने तो छत्तीसगढ़ के स्टील कोल के लिए, स्टील और आयरन ओर के लिए छत्तीसगढ़ की जितनी इंडस्ट्री है, मैं आज दावे से कहता हूँ, मुझसे ज्यादा कोई कोल ब्लॉक कॉम्पटन में रिकमेंडेशन नहीं किया होगा, मेरे से ज्यादा कोई आयरन ओर के लिए डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नहीं, हमने नीति बना दी बस। कोई
डील नहीं की।
कोई 100 साल आरोप इसलिए नहीं लगा सकता। क्यों नहीं लगा सकता, उसका कारण बता रहा। हमने कहा जो वैल्यू एडिशन करेगा छत्तीसगढ़ में, उसके साथ हम MOU करेंगे, और उनको हमने कोयला भी दिया, हमने उसको लोहा भी दिया। 70 कंपनियां, कोई एक आज तक 1 रुपये का कोई विषय, इतने लोग कोल के स्कैन में 5 साल में कहां चले गए। डॉक्टर रमन ने कहा कि पूरी ट्रांसपेरेंसी के साथ, और आज नहीं, भूपेश को तो 5 साल हो गए भाई साहब, 5 साल से सरकार में है, एक फाइल को पलटा के देख चुका है, माइक्रोस्कोप लगा के देख चुका है, सारे अधिकारियों का टैलेंट देख चुका है। वो क्या किया 5 साल के अंदर, क्या निकला।
जिस तरह से आप आज बात कर रहे हैं, होश बड़े जोश से बात कर रहे हैं, ये आखिरी लड़ाई, लास्ट इलेक्शन, जीते या हारे लास्ट इलेक्शन।
ये बात मैं कह सकता हूं कि शायद इसके बाद मैं चुनाव की राजनीति में आऊंगा कि नहीं आऊंगा मुझे नहीं मालूम, मगर ये महत्वपूर्ण चुनाव है मेरे जीवन का।
Let's turn to our Get Real India story, where the Kashmir Valley is once again witnessing a spike in targeted killings. A head constable of Jammu and Kashmir police was shot dead by terrorists in Kashmir's Baramulla district earlier this week. This is the 3rd targeted attack in Kashmir in 3 days. It's our Get Real India story.
Another targeted killing in Kashmir Valley. Ghulam Mohammad Dar, a head constable of Jammu and Kashmir police, was shot dead by terrorists in Tangmarg area of North Kashmir's Baramulla on Tuesday. This is the 3rd targeted attack in Kashmir in 3 days, the second in which a police personnel was the victim. On Sunday, Police Inspector Masroor Wani was shot in Srinagar's Eidgah while playing cricket. Preliminary investigation revealed that a pistol was used in the terror attack. Earlier, Mukesh Kumar, a labourer from Uttar Pradesh, was shot dead by terrorists in Pulwama. While security has been stepped up, politics has erupted after the back-to-back targeted attacks by terrorists. The National Conference hit out at government policies, calling them a monumental failure.
कभी पुलिस को निशाना बनाया जाता है, कभी सिविलियंस को। हालात नॉर्मल है नहीं, ये हम सब जानते हैं। हुकूमत लोगों को इन हालात के बारे में गुमराह करने की कोशिश क्यों कर रही है, इसका जवाब सिर्फ हमारे हुक्मरान दे सकते हैं।
Kashmir Valley is witnessing a sudden spike in targeted killings. The attacks, some possibly by lone wolves, have become a challenge for the security forces. Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, just about enough time to leave you with our image of the day. A special ceremony at the Wankhede Stadium today for India's most celebrated cricketer and Bharat Ratna, Sachin Tendulkar. He was immortalized with a statue capturing Sachin Tendulkar playing one of his characteristic strokes, a tribute to Tendulkar's illustrious career and contribution to Indian cricket. A statue unveiled of Tendulkar at the Wankhede Stadium. I only wonder whether we'll ever have a day when stadiums are named after cricketers and not administrators. That, of course, for another day. For now, enjoy the moment. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubh Ratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar.